The happiest place on Earth is rapidly becoming the most expensive disappointment in the galaxy. Welcome back to the channel where we ferment the truth until it is sour and crunchy. I am Chill Dill. For decades, Walt Disney World was the unassailable titan of family vacations, a cultural monolith where dreams came true and parents willingly suspended their disbelief along with their fiscal responsibility. But lately, the air around the Magic Kingdom feels different, less like pixie dust, and more like the exhaust fumes of a corporate machine running on fumes and nostalgia. We are witnessing the slow, agonizing decline of an empire that forgot its primary product was supposed to be magic, not quarterly earnings reports. Today, we are going to dissect the rotting carcass of the mouse to figure out exactly when the magic died, and why Universal Studios is currently sharpening a very large knife in the background. Let us begin with the most obvious nail in the coffin, which is the absolute absurdity of the pricing model that has effectively turned the parks into a gated community for the ultra-wealthy. Once upon a time, a middle-class family could save up for a summer, pack the station wagon, and enjoy a week of rides without needing to sell a kidney on the black market. Today, a single-day ticket costs more than the weekly grocery budget for a family of 4. And that is before you factor in the surge pricing that treats human beings like Uber rides during a rainstorm. They have raised prices on food, merchandise, and hotels so aggressively that you have to wonder if the goal is to empty the park or just empty your soul. It is not just inflation, it is price gouging wrapped in a bow, forcing families to take out loans for a vacation where they will spend 40% of their time standing in lines that stretch into the next county. The happiest place on Earth is rapidly becoming the most expensive disappointment in the galaxy. If the prices do not kill your spirit, the logistical nightmare of actually navigating the parks certainly will, thanks to the introduction of Genie Plus and the Lightning Lane system. Gone are the days of spontaneity where you could wander the park and hop on a ride because it looked fun. Now you are required to wake up at 7 a.m. on your vacation to book reservations on an app that crashes more often than a bumper car driven by a toddler. You are essentially paying thousands of dollars to stare at your phone screen for 12 hours a day, managing virtual queues and stacking reservations like you are a day trader on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. The Disney difference used to be the immersive experience, but now the experience is blocked by a paywall where you have to pay extra per person, per ride, just to skip the line you already paid to get into. It creates a caste system within the park, breeding resentment among guests, and turning what should be a leisure activity into a high-stress military operation. Nothing exemplifies the hubris of modern Disney quite like the catastrophic failure of the Galactic Star Cruiser, the Star Wars hotel that was essentially a 2-night prison sentence costing $6,000. This was supposed to be the future of immersive entertainment, a land-locked cruise ship where you roleplay with underpaid actors, but the market rejected it so violently that they had to close it down in just over a year. It stands now as a concrete monument to the disconnect between Disney executives and reality, proving that they believed their fans were mindless consumers who would pay any price for a logo. They built a windowless bunker, charged the price of a used Honda Civic for a weekend stay, and were genuinely shocked when the average family said no thanks and went to the beach instead. This failure wasn't just a financial write-off. It was a piercing of the veil, showing the world that the Disney magic is not invincible, and that their strategy of limitless extraction has a breaking point. While they are busy building failed hotels, the actual parks are suffering from a shocking lack of maintenance that would make a traveling carnival look like high-end luxury. Frequent visitors have been documenting peeling paint, rusted animatronics, and mold growing on the It's a Small World ride, which is perhaps the most terrifying metaphor for the company's current state. Rides break down with alarming frequency, leaving guests stranded for hours, ruining the immersion and wasting the precious time they paid a fortune for. This is what happens when you cut the operational budget to the bone to service debt and boost executive bonuses. The physical reality of the park begins to decay. When the Yeti on Everest hasn't moved in 15 years and the Splash Mountain logs are sinking, you have to ask yourself if you are visiting a theme park or an archaeological dig site of a former civilization. The most dangerous threat to Disney's dominance isn't their own incompetence, but the aggressive expansion of Universal Studios and their upcoming Epic Universe park. For years, Disney rested on its laurels, assuming they had a monopoly on childhood joy, while Universal was busy acquiring rights to Nintendo, Harry Potter, and building rides that actually utilize modern technology. Epic Universe is not just a new park. It is a declaration of war, promising a level of immersion and scale that makes Disney's recent additions look like temporary pop-up shops. Universal is listening to what guests want: faster thrills, cohesive lands, and reasonable operations, while Disney is busy lecturing its audience and raising the price of bottled water. When Epic Universe opens, it will drain the swamp of Central Florida, pulling millions of tourists away from the mouse. And for the first time in history, Disney will be the secondary option for a Florida vacation. Behind all these visible failures lies a corporate civil war that has left the company without a clear vision or a steady hand at the wheel. The transition from Bob Iger to Bob Chapek and back to Bob Iger again was a fumble of epic proportions, revealing a boardroom that cares more about political posturing than guest satisfaction. They have alienated huge swaths of their audience by getting entangled in cultural battles that have nothing to do with running a theme park, effectively telling half the country they aren't welcome. This identity crisis has trickled down to the creative output, resulting in a string of box office bombs that fail to generate the merchandise sales or park hype needed to sustain the ecosystem. When the movies suck, the kids don't want the toys, and they don't beg their parents to go to the park to meet the characters, breaking the flywheel that made Disney print money for 50 years. Finally, we must address the intangible loss of the cast member spirit, which was once the secret sauce that held the entire illusion together. Disney employees are notoriously underpaid, struggling to afford rent in Orlando while being asked to maintain a facade of relentless happiness in the face of angry, entitled guests. The burnout rate is skyrocketing, leading to a noticeable decline in service quality, because it is hard to make magic when you are worrying about your car payment. The company has replaced the human touch with automated kiosks and mobile ordering, removing the friendly interactions that used to make guests feel special. When the people working at the park look just as miserable as the people paying to be there, the fantasy evaporates, and you are just left standing in a humid swamp surrounded by overpriced plastic. This human element was the last line of defense against the creeping corporatism, and now that line has been breached. Talk about the dilution of intellectual property, specifically the way they have milked Marvel and Star Wars until they are dry, shriveled husks. You cannot walk 5 feet without seeing a stormtrooper or a superhero, stripping these franchises of their specialness and turning them into generic wallpaper for gift shops. Instead of creating new, original rides based on original concepts, like Pirates of the Caribbean or Haunted Mansion, they just slap a movie skin on a generic coaster and call it a day. This lack of creativity means the parks are no longer leading culture. They are just chasing the tail end of fading movie trends. It is a creative bankruptcy that mirrors their moral bankruptcy, relying on past glories because they are too terrified to take a risk on something new. They are mining their own history because they have forgotten how to write the future. So, is Disney World finally dying? It is certainly sick, infected by a parasitic leadership that views guests as ATMs and rides as liabilities. While the parks won't close tomorrow, the era of Disney dominance is undeniably over, eroded by greed, incompetence, and the rise of better competitors who actually respect your time and money. They have traded long-term loyalty for short-term profits, a strategy that works great until the generation that grew up loving the mouse decides they are tired of being treated like rats in a maze. If Disney wants to survive, they need to burn the spreadsheets, lower the prices, and remember that magic isn't something you can manufacture on an assembly line. Until then, I'll be saving my money for a ticket to Epic Universe, or maybe just a really nice sandwich, because at least the sandwich won't charge me extra to eat it quickly. Smash that like button before hyperinflation makes your like worth nothing. Subscribe to the channel. I'm Chill Dill. Keep it crunchy.